Just when I thought things were going to plan, I've made a mistake that's cost me. It's the end of week 7 of my 8-week holiday cut. I'm going to run through each of my metrics, see what they're telling me, and what I'm going to do about it going into the final week. But before I go into the numbers, I want to give you a little bit of a story as to what I've done wrong and how I'm going to correct it in this coming week. So as it's the final 2 weeks of my cut, Wednesday night I was planning ahead and playing around with different calorie combinations on my app to see how carbs and fats influence my overall calorie goals for these final 2 weeks. Both the 2 weeks of cutting, or rather the final week of cutting now, and then also the reverse out of this cut into maintenance for my holiday. So I was saving various combinations on my tracker, and at the end of it all, after I've been playing around, I hit reopen previous goal option to cancel those changes. Thursday and Friday went fine. You know, I was eating the food, tracking it as I normally do. And then on Saturday we had pizzas. And as I was populating it at the end of the day, I realized that I'd reopened a former maintenance goal I had at the start of the year. And I'd gone from my 2,200 allowance to 2,877 calories. Now the Saturday was a planned social that was due to be a higher calorie allowance anyway. And I didn't notice until the end of that day because I was only looking at the little blue progress bars at the top rather than the actual numbers themselves. And it wasn't until that I saw 3,000 calories consumed that I clocked it, because immediately I saw 3,000, I thought, whoa, that's not right. And so my tracking error was then compounding on top of those pizzas. And so when I was logging through the app and then I saw the 3,000 come up on the screen, just sunk in and hit me, and I thought, 3,000, that's not right. How long have I been at this number? What have I done wrong? What has my intake actually been? How much am I over? And how is this going to affect my week? I had all these questions just start flooding in on that evening. Oh no, I messed this week up. And for about 5 minutes, I genuinely thought I'd derailed the goal and the deadline that I'd set of this 74.5 that I've been talking about. So to show you the numbers, Thursday, when I should have been on 2,200 calories, I had 2,453. Friday, I had 2,556. And Saturday, which was when I was having the pizza night, I had 3,538. So across those 3 days, after playing around with it on Wednesday night, I have consumed 1,902 calories above my target. Now, fortunately, that was just over the 3 days before I noticed it. And so my weight has averaged 75.3. And you can see that spike in the graph when this extra food is taken into account. So it's human error, and it's just me not paying attention, which is frustrated, as I was clearly consuming the extra food not to question it. And I'm just grateful that I caught it after 3 days and it wasn't a week or more. And so the question now becomes, how do I deal with this? Because this is a scenario you could have too. You could accidentally log food portion wrong for a few days. You may have underestimated some of your meals, or like me, you've overtracked. And so you've effectively got this extra pot of calories that need balancing out. But I have already burned 800 calories additional cardio based on week 6's check-in. So I already set myself a goal of doing 750 calories as part of week 7. So immediately from that 1902, I can deduct the 800 calories. So I've got 1,100 calories remaining, and there's a few options for how you can balance this out. The first one is I could split this 1,100 calories across a couple of days or even a week. So using the example of a week, it's 157 calories to counter this surplus. So I would just deduct 157 calories from the remaining of the next 7 days, and that in time would balance itself out. The alternative is you move more. So either eat less or move more. So I could burn an extra 1,100 calories through tracked cardio. The third option is you take the hit. I would learn from this and just go straight to 2,200 calories, take the hit, learn from my mistake, and over the next couple of days, or rather for the next week or two, I would just allow the rule of averages in the week to just balance it out and just know that my weight is going to be a little bit higher than where I would have liked. So this one works best when the overage, the number I'm over by, is only small, or when cutting food further would just push you into a place that's unsustainable. So it's not an excuse to ignore every mistake, it's just a tool for when the numbers genuinely support it. So if you were in a similar situation as this, you could follow the same 3 options. You've effectively given yourself a pot that you need to balance out, and you either spend it by cutting your food short or pushing your output higher. So weekends, in my case, I go for a run. And so I choose to move more than to eat less. And so I just extended my run and I burnt 645 calories according to my watch. Now, again, it's not 100% accurate, none of this is, but it's the best I've got to go by. And this just felt like a practical option for me. And what works for me may not work for you. And so that's why you should consider the 3 options in line with your own routine and lifestyle. So if I take that into account, that leaves me 457 calories that I need to claw back somewhere. So across the week, that's 65 calories, which in combination of day-to-day fluctuations in my food, steps and cardio, I'll probably absorb that. So what I'm trying to show you here is that 3 days of overeating and that 5 minutes of panic I had has been cancelled out once I actually broke down the numbers and looked at the real picture. Because this is the sort of error or mistake that would have written off my weekends. I'd have said to myself, oh, just start again on Monday. Or it might have cancelled my cut entirely and I'd just given up altogether because I've ruined 3 days, in my opinion, and then been led by that emotion and frustration to just write the whole thing off. Whereas in reality, I'm effectively back on plan with a little bit of a speed bump along the way. So let's go back to the chart, the final week, and how this is all going to roll out. Numbers. Weight this week, 75.3, which is still down from 75.9, but it's not as far down as it could have been. For calories, against a goal of 2,200, I've averaged 2,483 based on what we've talked through, and 163 grams of protein. For steps, I hit 15,212. And then water, it's been up at 3 litres, and it's been a particularly hot week here. So on the whole, bar the food, I've been really good, and that's what's made it even more frustrating. For sleep, it's been 6 hours and 43 minutes. So better than previous weeks and pretty consistent with the 7-hour mark, just in the middle range as it's always been, which is good to see. And then for cardio, against a goal of 750, like I just mentioned when we were doing the breakdown, I've burned 800 calories. And that's not including the additional extended run that I did as part of that breakdown. So this week, for week 8 and going into the final week, I'll drop down to 2,100 calories, which will take into account that 457 calories that I'm yet to account for from my mistake, but I'll keep my protein intake at 170 grams. Steps will remain at 15,000 and I will continue with that 750 calories of active cardio on the side. And that's it. Those are the goals for week 8. So the next video is the final result, and it's the part that nobody really talks about after a cut. And that is how to reverse out of a deficit and go into maintenance safely without losing everything you've built and all of the progress that you've made. And it's the part that most people get wrong. And so that's why if you're enjoying this series and you're enjoying this video, then you should subscribe so that you don't miss out. Because I'll be talking about how I calculate my new maintenance calories, how I ease myself up out of the deficit into those new calories, and then how I then maintain that. Because I talked about how for this cut, it was about going into the summer holiday lean, but then also how I'm going to use this to maintain a lean base throughout the period of summer so that I stay this physique, I stay at this level for the remainder of summer, enjoy the socials, and then when I go into the late summer and into autumn and then into winter, I will be able to do a much leaner bulk and I'll be able to work on a lean canvas rather than have the overspill from an overindulgent summer that I would then have to deal with next spring when I'd have to potentially cut down even more to take that into account. So that's week 8. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, drop some comments below, any questions, queries, anything you'd like me to run through as part of week 8. I'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.